forest breathes, you know. It inhales the mist and exhales secrets older than the stones that jut like broken teeth from its moss-choked floor. They say these woods are empty, abandoned by men who feared the dark and the things that move within it. They were wrong. It is never truly empty. I thought I was ready to tell you everything, to lay bare the blood and the bone of our story. But you need to understand how it began, how the whispers first curled like smoke around the edges of our sanctuary. You need to feel the ancient chill of the Moonfang legacy before you can comprehend the warmth of the blood that was spilled. This is the tale of the wolf pack, female werewolf's pack dynamics, a story etched in claw marks on the heartwood of a dying world. It's a whisper of the she-wolf-werewolf hierarchy, of the primal laws that govern those who wear the beast skin, and the devastating strength of an alpha female werewolf pushed to the brink. Our world is this ancient, mist-shrouded forest, a place bordering a forgotten village whose inhabitants long ago learned not to venture beyond their crumbling walls after dusk. Here, the howls of wolves are not mere animal calls. They are psalms, challenges, lamentations. They echo through hollowed ruins where blood sigils, centuries old, stain the earth, glowing faintly under the gaze of the true moon. The air is always damp, carrying the scent of pine, wet earth, and something older, something faintly metallic, the lingering iron tang of shed blood and primal magic. It is a place of oppressive beauty, suffocating in its embrace, threatening in its silence. The wind here doesn't just rustle leaves. It carries forgotten names and the chilling echoes of ancient rituals. We, the Moonfang pack, are the inheritors of this dominion. We are the original bloodline, daughters of Mother Moonfang, she who was gifted the power of transformation by the moon goddess herself, a boon to protect these sacred lands from the encroachment of men. Our werewolf lore is unique. Our shifts are not solely slaves to the lunar cycle. They are kindled by the fire of sisterhood. The closer the pack, the stronger, the purer the beast within. This is the core of our werewolf mythology. Tonight, the mist hangs heavier than usual, a shroud woven by unseen hands. The moon, a pale sliver, offers little comfort. I am Alara, alpha of this pack, and a knot of unease tightens in my chest, cold and sharp as a shard of ice. The forest is too quiet. The familiar symphony of night creatures is muted, replaced by a listening silence as if the very trees hold their breath. Something is coming. Something that will test the bonds of our sisterhood, the strength of our transformations, and the very essence of what it means to be Moonfang. If you're still listening, if the shadows haven't yet claimed your attention, then lean closer. Let the scent of the ancient woods fill your senses. But be warned, once you hear the first howl, once you glimpse the truth hidden within the female werewolf pack dynamics, there's no unhearing it. Whisper your courage into the encroaching darkness, for the forest remembers every sound, every fear. The unsettling stillness of that night was a harbinger. In the days that followed, the familiar rhythms of our territory fractured. Strange, unidentifiable scents, acrid and unsettling, clung to the damp undergrowth at the northern boundary, a place usually thick with the aroma of pine and wolf. The tracks we found there were distorted, as if something heavy and unnatural had dragged itself through the mud, blurring the clear prints of deer and boar. Game, once plentiful, became unnervingly scarce. The rabbits vanished. The deer herds moved with a frantic, unnatural fear, their eyes wide with a terror that spoke of more than just the familiar threat of our hunting prowess. As alpha, the well-being of my pack rests upon my shoulders, a weight as constant as the moon's pull. My closest sister, Kale, a she-wolf whose loyalty was as steadfast as the ancient oaks, noticed my disquiet. Her muzzle would often nudge my flank in silent query, her amber eyes reflecting my own concern. Young Serena, too, barely past her first few transformations, would watch me, her youthful exuberance tempered by the growing tension that permeated our den. The forest itself seemed to share our growing dread. The mists clung longer each morning, refusing to yield to the pale sun, transforming our familiar paths into ghostly corridors. The ancient ruins, usually silent sentinels, seemed to hum with a low, inaudible vibration, a thrumming that resonated deep in my bones, making the hairs on my nape prickle. I, Alara, felt it most acutely, a growing, indefinable unease. a sense of being watched by unseen eyes. The forest, our sanctuary, was beginning to feel like a trap. This insidious change frayed the edges of my usual composure, a crucial element in maintaining the delicate werewolf social structure that defined our survival. One evening, as the pack gathered for the communal howl, a ritual that reinforced our bonds and echoed our claim to the land, a chilling dissonance rippled through our chorus. It was subtle, a slight wavering in the harmony, an undercurrent of fear where there should have been only strength and unity. I tried to dismiss it as a reflection of my own anxieties, but the seed of doubt had been planted. My dreams became troubled, filled with fleeting images of shadows with glowing eyes and the scent of decay. My judgment, usually sharp and decisive, felt clouded, leading to minor disputes over hunting strategies, small frictions that, in our tightly knit pack, felt like gaping wounds. The first concrete sign that something was truly amiss came during a patrol near the Whispering Falls. There, nestled amongst the roots of a gnarled elder tree, was one of our oldest Moonfang shrines, a circle of smooth river stones surrounding a carved depiction of Mother Moonfang. It had been desecrated. The carving was smeared with a dark, viscous substance that smelled foully of rot and something else. Something that carried the faintest, most horrifying hint of wolf. And across the sacred image, a new sigil had been clawed, a twisted, broken crescent, a mockery of our own sacred mark. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through my unease. This was no random act of a desperate scavenger. This was a message, a threat aimed directly at the heart of our female werewolf pack dynamics. The defiled shrine sent a tremor of fear through the Moonfang pack. Whispers replaced the usual comfortable silences in the den. Doubt, like a creeping vine, began to entwine itself around the hearts of my sisters. The alpha female werewolf is the bedrock of her pack, and I could feel the ground beneath me begin to shift. My attempts to project calm reassurance felt hollow, even to my own ears. The scent of fear, subtle yet pervasive, began to taint the air, a dangerous perfume in a society where unity was paramount. The true horror, however, began to manifest in our very blood, in the sacred magic of our transformations. According to our werewolf lore, betrayal or deep schism within the pack weakens the bond to Mother Moonfang, causing the magic to sour, leading to deformities or incomplete shifts. We had heard tales from ancestral memory, stories of packs that tore themselves apart, their members becoming twisted mockeries of the noble forms they once held. These were stories meant to reinforce loyalty, terrifying cautionary tales. We never thought we would live one. It happened during a routine bonding ritual under the quarter moon, a time for younger members to practice their shifts under the watchful eyes of the elders. Myra, a promising young she-wolf, barely a year into her transformations, stepped into the ceremonial circle. As the familiar power began to surge, a blood-curdling scream ripped through the clearing. Instead of the sleek, powerful form of the wolf, Myra's body contorted, bones cracked audibly, fur sprouted in patches, one limb elongating hideously while the other remained agonizingly human. Her eyes, wide with terror and excruciating pain, rolled back in her head. She was a grotesque parody of a werewolf, a living testament to the growing sickness in our pack. It took 3 of us to restrain her, her howls of agony echoing the fracturing state of our female alpha werewolf traits of protection and unity. The crescent scar on her chest, the mark of her connection to the ancestral line, pulsed with a sickly dim light before fading almost entirely. The event left a pall of dread over us, a tangible fear that the very essence of our being was unraveling. The glowing crescent scars on some of the other pups, too, seemed fainter, less vibrant. My own paranoia intensified. Sleep offered no respite, only a canvas for increasingly vivid nightmares. I saw spectral wolves with eyes like burning coals stalking the periphery of our territory. Ancestral figures, their faces contorted in sorrow and anger, wept tears of blood that stained the forest floor. The line between these waking dreams and reality began to blur. Was that rustle in the undergrowth truly the wind, or the soft padding of unseen paws? Was the whisper I heard on the breeze a figment of my exhausted mind, or a warning from the spirits of Mother Moonfang? I started to question my own senses, my own sanity. The forest itself seemed to mirror my internal turmoil. The mists grew thicker, more oppressive. The ancient ruins, once familiar landmarks, now seemed to shift and change in the periphery of my vision, their shadows lengthening into grotesque, menacing shapes. The air grew heavy, charged with an unseen energy that made my fur stand on end. The breaking point came during a desperate, fog-choked hunt near the hollowed ruins where the despoiled shrine lay. We were tracking a stag, its scent faint and erratic, as if it too was disoriented by the unnatural atmosphere. The fog was a living thing, coiling around us, muffling sound, creating a disorienting, claustrophobic world. Kale was at my side, Sorina and two others fanning out. Suddenly a shriek tore through the oppressive silence, not of a stag, but of a wolf, one of ours. We plunged through the swirling gray. We found Mara, one of our strongest hunters, pinned to the ground, her throat torn, and standing over her, silhouetted against the faint, sickly light filtering through the canopy, was a figure, half transformed, exuding an aura of raw, unsettling power and a scent that was horrifyingly familiar, yet corrupted, twisted. As the mist swirled, a shaft of moonlight pierced through, illuminating the attacker's face. My heart stopped, my breath hitched. It couldn't be. Long, matted fur, eyes burning with an unnatural, predatory intensity, a subtle warping to her, form that spoke of broken magic. It was Lyra, my sister, my closest companion, lost years ago in a brutal territorial skirmish, believed dead, the sister whose loss had carved a permanent hollow in my soul. But this was not the Lyra I remembered. This was a ghost, a nightmare given flesh, her presence a venomous dagger to the heart of our already wounded pack. And in her eyes, I saw not reunion, but a terrifying, chilling intent. The long-lost sister had returned, not as a phantom of grief, but as a harbinger of our doom. Lyra, the name was a shard of glass in my throat. The shock of her presence, this corrupted echo of the sister I'd mourned, rooted me to the spot. Her scent, once as familiar as my own, was now laced with something dark and ancient, something that spoke of forbidden paths and violated tenets of our werewolf mythology. The other pack members recoiled, a collective gasp of disbelief and terror caught in the oppressive fog. Before I could find my voice, before the grief and horror could fully coalesce, Lyra spoke. Her voice was a rasp, a guttural sound that seemed to tear its way from her throat, yet it carried with an unnatural resonance cutting through the heavy air. "Ilara," she hissed, her lips curling back from elongated canines, her eyes burning with that strange internal fire fixed on me. Still playing alpha, I see, still clinging to the old ways, the weak ways. Then came the blow, the true purpose of her horrifying return. Her gaze swept over the cowering pack, lingering on little Fen, one of the newest pups, barely old enough to have earned his crescent scar, a pup I had taken a particular fondness to, his playful spirit a rare light in these darkening days. "Your precious unity is a lie," Lyra sneered, a cruel twist to her muzzle. "Your bloodline, the sacred Moonfang lineage you guard so jealously, is tainted." She pointed a clawed finger towards Fen, who whimpered and pressed himself against Serena's leg. "That pup, he is not of our blood. His presence is an impurity, a rot that festers at the heart of this pack, poisoning your magic, weakening your bonds. It is why Mother Moonfang averts her gaze. It is why your rituals fail. It is why you are dying." The accusation struck like a physical blow, stealing the air from my lungs. An impurity in the bloodline? It was the gravest sacrilege, a betrayal that, according to our folklore-inspired horror tales, invited the wrath of spectral ancestors and the complete unraveling of a pack. The pack erupted into a cacophony of panicked yelps and furious snarls. Some stared at Fen with newfound suspicion and horror, others looked to me, their eyes wide with confusion and fear. The delicate threads of our werewolf social structure snapped. "Lies!" I finally choked out, my voice hoarse. "Lyra, what has happened to you? This isn't you." She laughed, a chilling, joyless sound. "Oh, but it is, sister. I have seen the truth in the shadows you feared to tread. While you clung to sentiment, I embraced power." Her form seemed to shimmer, the shadows around her deepening, coalescing. The implications of her words, her very presence, were devastating. If a pup was truly impure, my leadership was not just questioned, it was invalidated. The pack, already teetering on the brink, now faced a schism from which it might never recover. The trust that bound us, the very foundation of our strength, was being systematically dismantled by the ghost of my beloved sister. Later that night, huddled in the deepest part of our den, seeking solace from the storm Lyra had unleashed, Serena brought me a tattered piece of hide, something she'd found near the desecrated shrine days ago but had been too frightened to show. It was old, brittle, and scrawled upon it in what looked like dried blood was a fragment of corrupted lore, a twisted version of a Moonfang passage. When the bond phrase and the sister turns, the moon weeps shadows. Seek not unity and falsehood, for the tainted blood calls to the hungry dark. The true alpha knows the scent of betrayal. If you are still reading this warning, if the whispers of the old ones have reached even your ears, know that the impurity must be purged. Share this truth before the shadows consume all. Like, share, or become another forgotten howl in the wind of their coming. The message was clear. Lyra was not just a lost sister returned. She was an agent of chaos, armed with a truth or a lie, so potent it could destroy us all. And her chilling call to action, this perversion of our sacred texts, echoed the insidious nature of her return. The psychological horror of her words was as potent as any physical threat. My pack, my sisters, were being forced to choose, and the wrong choice meant annihilation. Lyra's accusation, coupled with the insidious message Serena found, ripped through the Moonfang pack like a poisoned claw. The days that followed were a blur of escalating tension and psychological torment. Trust, once the bedrock of our female werewolf pack dynamics, became a forgotten luxury. Eyes that once held sisterly affection now glinted with suspicion. Whispers followed me like my own shadow, questioning my judgment, my strength, my very right to lead as the alpha female werewolf. Attempts to perform unifying rituals, desperate measures to mend the fractured bonds, failed catastrophically. During one such attempt, under a sky bruised purple by an impending storm, old Theron, one of our most respected elders, tried to lead the chant of renewal. As the words left her muzzle, her form began to shift, but not into the strong, familiar wolf. Instead, her limbs twisted at unnatural angles, her spine arched, and with a horrifying, wet-tearing sound, her body seemed to split. Two malformed, conjoined heads emerging, both screaming in unearthly agony. The sight sent waves of terror through the remaining loyalists. We had to end her suffering, a mercy that felt like another nail in our collective coffin. The pure horror of witnessing such a grotesque perversion of our sacred transformation shattered what little composure remained. For many, Lyra, meanwhile, moved like a phantom through the periphery of our territory, her influence spreading like a disease. She preyed on the fearful and the resentful, her whispers promising power to those who felt marginalized, twisting their anxieties into loyalty towards her. Her faction grew, a shadow pack forming within our own, their eyes reflecting the same unnatural fire as their new corrupted leader. The forest itself seemed to be siding with her. Game was plentiful in the areas she frequented, while our traditional hunting grounds remained barren and hostile. My own sanity frayed, the nightmares intensified, no longer confined to sleep. Waking visions haunted me. Fen, the accused pup, howling silently from within a ring of ethereal burning flames, untouched by the fire, but surrounded by shadowy claw marks that scored the earth. Spectral wolves, their forms indistinct and wavering, seemed to watch me from the depths of the mist-laden woods, their silent judgment more terrifying than any snarl. I began to doubt my own memories of Lyra, of our past. Had I missed signs? Was I truly blind to this darkness within her? Or was this a new corruption, something that had twisted her beyond recognition? The psychological disturbance was relentless, blurring the lines between reality and delusion. The most devastating blow came one dawn after a night of fitful, terror-filled sleep. I awoke to a chilling silence. Kale, my steadfast Kale, who always slept near the den entrance, was missing. A frantic search ensued, my heart pounding with a dreadful premonition. We found him, or rather, what Lyra had left of him. He was beneath our central ceremonial stone, the one used for the most sacred of blood rites. He had been buried alive, his chest carved with the same desecrated moonfang symbols I'd seen on the shrine. His eyes were wide, frozen in a silent scream, a testament to the brutal, terrifying power Lyra now wielded. The loss of Kale was more than the death of a mate and a loyal sister. It was a strategic strike, isolating me, breaking my spirit. Lyra was not just challenging my leadership. She was systematically destroying everything I held dear, turning our supernatural survival into a grim descent into madness and despair. The cost of defying her, of clinging to the old ways, was becoming unbearable. The murder of Kale was the final desecration, the act that shattered any lingering hope of reconciliation. Grief warred with a cold, hard rage within me. There was no more room for doubt, no more time for diplomacy. Lyra had to be stopped. The blood moon, a malevolent crimson eye, ascended that night, bathing our ancient mist-shrouded forest in an apocalyptic glow. It was under this baleful light, in our most sacred clearing, now a place of defilement and dread, that the final confrontation was destined to unfold. Lyra awaited, flanked by her new shadow-eyed followers. Her own form was now a nightmarish perversion of the werewolf transformation ritual. She was a terrifying fusion of wolf, human, and writhing shadow, tendrils of darkness coiling around her limbs, her eyes burning with corrupted lunar energy. This was her true unveiling, the monstrous culmination of her broken bonds and her pact with whatever dark forces had twisted her. The air crackled with unnatural energy, and the very ground beneath our paws seemed to tremble. What remained of my loyal pack members stood with me, their fear a palpable scent, but their resolve hardened by grief and the instinct for supernatural survival. "It ends tonight, Lyra," I snarled, my voice raw, the beast within me straining against my skin, eager for release despite the weakening magic. Her laughter was like shattering ice. "Oh, it ended long ago for you, Alara. You just refused to see it." The battle erupted. It was not merely a clash of tooth and claw, but a maelstrom of physical fury and spiritual warfare. Lyra's corrupted power warped reality around us. The mists writhed, taking on the forms of spectral wolves, their howls echoing with the torment of forgotten ancestors. The ground cracked open, spewing forth plumes of foul-smelling vapor. Trees, ancient sentinels of our lands, began to weep, thick, blood-like sap, their branches twisting into grasping claws, the forest itself bleeding in agony from the schism. This was the folklore-inspired horror of our darkest legends made real. During the chaos, a vision, or perhaps a targeted attack by Lyra, seared my mind. Little Fen, the accused pup, trapped within a den of spectral fire, his terrified howls unheard by anyone but me, shadowy claws reaching for him. It was a cruel torment, a psychological weapon designed to break me. My loyal sisters fought bravely, but Lyra's power, fueled by the fractured pack magic she had stolen and amplified, was immense. One by one they fell, or their transformations failed them, leaving them vulnerable or grotesquely altered. The female alpha werewolf traits of protection felt like a cruel mockery as I watched my pack be decimated. Then, Lyra revealed her final, devastating truth, her voice cutting through the din of battle and dying screams. "The pup, Ilara, the impurity you shielded. Do you know whose blood truly taints him?" Her eyes bored into mine. "He is mine, conceived in shadow, born of a betrayal you knew nothing about. A link to a power you could never comprehend, a power I offered our pack, but your precious traditions, your fear, rejected it." Her words were a poisoned arrow. Fen, her son, the impurity, was her own twisted legacy. Her bitterness wasn't just about a lost leadership. It was about a perceived rejection, a festering wound that had corrupted her utterly. Her goal was to shatter the Moonfang lineage and remake it in her own monstrous image, a testament to the terrifying cost of defying the pack's sacred laws, but also the cost of her own choices. I was weakening, My own transformations painful, incomplete. Doubt, Lyra's most potent weapon, gnawed at my resolve. How could I fight this maelstrom of corrupted power and familial betrayal? The remaining pups, the future of the Moonfang, cowered behind a fallen log, their terrified eyes fixed on me. And in that moment of hopelessness, a terrible clarity descended. I could not defeat Lyra through force, not like this, but I could still save them. There was one final forbidden ritual in our werewolf lore, a sacrifice of self to purify the ancestral line, to sever a corrupted link. It meant surrendering everything, my power, my wolf, my very connection to Mother Moonfang. With a final defiant howl that tore from the depths of my soul, I invoked it. For the pack, I screamed, channeling every ounce of my remaining will. The glowing crescent scar on my chest, the mark of my alpha status and my lineage, began to burn with an unbearable intensity. It felt like my soul was being ripped from my body. An agonizing burst of pure white light erupted from me, a shockwave of cleansing energy. It struck Lyra, and she shrieked, not in pain, but in outrage, as the corrupted shadows receded from her as the dark power she wielded was severed from its source. The spectral wolves dissolved. The bleeding trees stood still, and the blood moon seemed to pale. Lyra, stripped of her stolen might, her form flickering and unstable, was consumed by the very shadows she had courted, dragged screaming into whatever abyss had spawned her corruption. The cost was absolute. The light faded and I collapsed, the familiar strength of the wolf draining from me, leaving only the aching emptiness of a human forever scarred. The blood moon receded, its malevolent crimson replaced by the bruised purple of a scarred dawn. Lyra was gone, her terrifying reign ended as abruptly as it had begun. The sacred clearing was a scene of devastation, littered with the fallen, the air thick with the scent of blood, ozone, and profound loss. The forest, our ancient home, was eerily silent, forever changed, forever tainted by the conflict that had nearly extinguished the Moonfang line. Our werewolf social structure, so carefully maintained for generations, lay in ruins. But we were not entirely extinguished. A few survivors, battered and grieving, emerged from the shadows. Among them were the pups, including young Fen, no longer a symbol of impurity but a testament to the complex, tragic tapestry of our existence. He looked at me, his eyes holding an ancient wisdom, a sorrow too deep for his young age. In the days that followed, a new alpha rose from the ashes. It was Serena, no longer the impressionable youngster, but a she-wolf, forged in fire and loss, her gaze steady, her resolve unyielding. She bore the heavy knowledge of our history, of the female werewolf pack dynamics that could both empower and destroy. Understanding that our old territory was now a monument to pain and betrayal, she made the difficult decision. Leading the handful of remaining Moonfang, she guided them away from the desecrated clearing, away from the hollowed ruins and blood-sigilled grounds, deeper into uncharted wilderness. They sought to rebuild, to forge a new, warrior legacy, far from the memories that haunted the ancient mist-shrouded forest and the encroaching world of men. And I, Alara, remained, fully human now, the transformation a phantom ache in my bones, the power a hollow echo in my soul. The glowing crescent scar, once a mark of pride and connection, was gone, replaced by a pale latticework of scars that throbbed faintly under the light of the full moon. I lived a solitary life on the very edge of that vast ancient forest, an outcast by necessity, my sacrifice ensuring their survival, but forever exiling me from their world. The dread of what was, the reverence for the bonds we once shared, the lingering tension of unseen threats, and a profound awe at the strength of sisterhood, even under duress, were my constant companions. Sometimes when the wind is right, I hear them, distant mournful howls carried on the night air, the sound of my sisters, my pack, surviving. It is a symphony of both profound love and unbearable loss, a constant aching reminder of the family I saved but can no longer join. The primal fear may have receded, but its shadow lingers. Maybe now, you see, or maybe you're just another whisper in the wind, unheard by those who still roam the moonlit paths. Either way, the forest remembers. It remembers the blood, the betrayal, and the sacrifice. Return, if you dare, before the next full moon calls to the shadows that remain, or don't. The The forest remembers your scent too, and for those who hunger for more, step deeper into the shadows with our ultimate werewolf horror playlist, linked in the description below. In the world of horror, the scariest things happen when you least expect them, and trust me, you don't want to be left in the dark. Welcome to the darkness.